I recently read Range by David Epstein. Why generalists triumph in a world filled with specialists, and that's the book we're going to be reviewing and kind of seeing into the lessons that we can take away in our own lives. So let's get started without much further ado. So before I delve into a lot of the details and have my perspective of what I think about the book, I just want to speak about three sports people, right? So Steve Nash, Roger Federer, and Mahendra Singh Dhoni. What do you think are the commonalities between these folks? Apart from being the greatest in their respective sports, which is basketball, tennis, and cricket, and one of the all-time greats in these respective sports, these are people who are called what the author calls as late specializers. What are late specializers? So late specializers are people who sampled a lot of things initially, be it with respect to sports, be it with respect to their career options, be it with respect to their roles and things like that, before zeroing in on the sport that they were playing, right? So for example, Steve Nash, I think was he was a professional soccer player before he decided to pursue basketball. Roger Federer sampled a ton of sports before he finally picked up his tennis racket and started focusing on it. Similarly, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, for folks from the Southeast Asia or from India especially, if you have seen his biopic, you would know that he was a goalkeeper in his school before he chose to become a wicketkeeper and one of the greatest captains of the Indian cricket team. Right? So all these were people who are very, chose very, very late specialization. This goes against our conventional wisdom, right? Because right from a very young age, we are kind of tuned or conditioned to think for you to be great at something, you need to start very early. You need to have a head start compared to some of your peers, right? Because we keep hearing stories of these child prodigies, people who started at 2 or 3, for example. We are quoted examples of Mozart, who started playing music at 4. We are quoted examples of Tiger Woods, who started picking up a golf stick at the age of 2. And similarly, you keep hearing these stories. David Epstein argues that these are exceptions and not the norm. Greatness in sports, architecture, leadership, and a variety of roles is followed by a period of sampling, which is trying out different things before we arrive at what they call as the one fixated career. Right? This goes against a conventional wisdom, and I wanted to reflect upon my own career and see, hey, does it even hold true? And if it holds true, why does it hold true? And you don't have to go far to realize why it might be true. David Epstein packs this book with a lot of insights and stories around why this is true. For example, there is this study called the dark horse study, which where researchers spoke to a variety of people across different professions who were very, very successful in what they were doing. And surprisingly, most of these people had sampled a ton of career, but the most astonishing thing was most of these people felt that they were misfits. They didn't know what they were doing. They were very clueless at the start of their career, and they always felt like they were being lagging behind, or in terms of monetarily, in terms of what they could achieve, and a ton of things they were lagging behind. And most of these people thought that they were very, very, very lucky to be successful in what they were doing because they started specializing very, very late in their career. But this tells a story, right? Because if you're seeing a lot of success across different professions of people specializing late and then being successful, there has to be a pattern on why they were successful. So I kind of took away 3 main takeaways from this book of why these dark horses who thought they were misfits, they didn't have any clue on what they were doing, ended up becoming successful. Initially, the early specializers, or the folks who start specializing very, very early in their career, they make choices for someone who is going to be 10 years down the line, or someone who is going to be 20 years down the line, right? Whereas these dark horses at best had 90-day plans. Now, I want to ask you a question. How many of you are in the career that you thought you would be as a kid, right? Let's say, for example, in my case, I wanted to be a pilot for the longest time. And when I say the longest time, until I finished my school. And once I entered my college, I wanted to become a journalist. And then all along my college, I was like, I want to be a journalist. I did a few things, and then I used to report for my college magazine and things like that. and I quickly realized that okay, this isn't of interest to me. And then I later moved my career to marketing, and boom, I felt like I found my calling. But even within marketing, I've shifted multiple roles. So now the question back to you: how many of you are pursuing career that as a kid or as a teenager or as someone who's very very early in your career thought you should be doing, and you're exactly doing that? Right? Because when you're making choice very early, or when you're starting to specialize very very early in your career, you are making choice for someone whom you don't know how they will be 10 years down the line, right? The author goes on to beautifully explain about how professionally and personally we keep evolving as a person, and you making a choice is probably will end up being a success, but the odds of it not being successful is far 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 higher. So that is one of the reasons why a lot of dark horses in the study who sampled a ton of career didn't have like a lot of let's say 2-year plan, 5-year plan, 10 years plan. Most of the time they were like, hey, this is what I am, this is what I'm currently interested in, let me do this thing to earn money while I'm nurturing other things or also exploring other things. At best they had 90-day plans, right? So that is one of the reasons why I feel a lot of dark horses were successful, where they sampled and they didn't take decisions for themselves who they were going to be 5 years down the line. The second reason why a lot of these dark horses were successful is because they do rather than they keep reflecting, right? I'm reminded of this famous cricket commentary where this commentator tells about the best decisions to take are the ones that you never have to take. So just take a moment to recall this. So we are great at giving advice to people, we are great at giving relationship, career or any kind of advice to people because we are in the one that takes a decision. And I bet I can bet my life on this, if you are going to be in the same situation as the friend that you're advising to, you might end up taking a different decision, because we are all experts in decisions that we don't want to take, right? So all of these late specializers or dark horses, they end up doing rather than reflecting, right? So they don't keep thinking about, oh, what if I was a YouTuber? Oh my God, what if I was a media person? What if I had a retail store? Rather, they think about, okay, let me sample this for, the first 3 months of my life. The next 6 months, I'm just going to focus on building this to see whether I like this before I go into doing something else, right? So being a late specializer ensures that you try a lot of things and you pick up learnings along the way. For example, in my personal case, being consistent with this YouTube has made me a much more grounded person, because when I started this YouTube journey, I used to think, I'll put in like 10-15 videos, I'm gonna be in 1,000 subscribers and like I'm gonna start making money that's equivalent to my day salary and stuff like that. Now I've started to appreciate the process behind a YouTube video. I've started to appreciate the hard work that goes into it. I've started to appreciate the process of failing or practicing deliberate failure and a ton of things, which I'm able to translate to my work life, my personal life, and a ton of other things, right? So what happens when you sample a lot of things is that you carry those learnings to multiple places or multiple phases of your life, and this is something that the dark horses do really really well before they end up specializing. If I had to kind of sit back and tell you about 2 things that you must take away from this book, I would say the number one is going to be, don't marry the first profession that you get into. And I bet this is more common for Westerners as compared to people from where I come, with the Southeast Asia, especially India, where we think that the first job that I get into is the job that I need to do till probably next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? So I would say, don't think of your career as a single lane highway, rather think of it like a 6-lane highway where you try a lot of things between you're 18 and 35. You try and sample a lot of things. Is not to say that you keep jumping stuff without stability, but once you've sorted out your income to meet your needs and things like that, you could try and sample a lot of different things before you say, okay, this is what I want to be doing, right? And personally, I have been like sampling a lot of things. For example, there was this phase in my life where I was very very interested in psychology and being a clinical therapist. I've been exploring that. There was a phase in my life and I'm still interested in sports psychology and the nutrition side of things, and I'm obviously interested in these YouTube, being a creator, entrepreneur and things like that. So I'm sampling a lot of things myself, and this book was the much needed validation that I got to say, hey, you know what, it's okay to be slightly clueless you're clueless in your career or what you want from life, as long as you're doing rather than just reflecting to say, oh, I might do this, I might do that. and at best you might end up finding your calling, or at worst you will end up taking a lot of these skills and applying it to the other jobs that you are doing. Second thing, sampling multiple things ensure you have 4 different kind of benefits. One, it helps your analog thinking. So what is analog thinking? So analog thinking is you approaching a problem from outside in and then looking for commonalities for structurally similar problems. Let me take an example, right? So you could say, let's say you are a civil engineer and I'm not, and because I've sampled multiple different things, let's say you ask me for the what is the cost of construction of this house, then I could, there is one way to approach it to say, okay, I will take the cost of the bricks, the tiles that come in, the woodwork that's gonna go in. The other way to approach would be to say, hey, I'm just gonna see a similar house in terms of square feet and the decor. I'm just gonna quote a cost very simply that's similar to that. So I'm just gonna do like a simple Google search and come up with an answer for that. Maybe your answer is far more accurate, but I might not be off more than 10 or 15%, right? So that is good enough for someone who's not a civil engineer. And what I'm doing here is trying to apply my learning from elsewhere into this problem. So once you start developing these analog thinking into other areas of work, it's going to give you like a significant head start compared to other peers who haven't sampled as much. And similarly, sampling a lot of different things opens up your mind to different perspectives, because more often than not when we are tied to one profession, we think of it like input output, whereas you start to appreciate the subjectivity in things, subjectivity in how things happen, and you're far more open to accept how things might go wrong, or what is it that might go wrong, and how your ideas might not be the greatest ones, because it might not work, and you start treating your ideas as hypotheses compared to oh, my idea is the best idea and need to work, and you're being very, very hard on yourself when it doesn't work. So sampling a lot of different things ensures that you start treating your ideas as hypotheses. The continuation of it is the third one, which is it helps you drop all your familiar tools to solve the problem, which is to say, hey, if you're thinking that there is a problem, I'm just going to approach it this way because the process or the my conventional knowledge tells me so. Yes, conventional knowledge is great at a lot of places, but you dropping your familiar tools will ensure that you're attacking the problem from different perspectives and different corners. There is this beautiful example that the author explains about an oil leak in the sea, and how a civil engineer and not a marine engineer comes and solves it from his totally unrelated experience he has. I highly recommend you folks read the book to find out what that example is. So as a closing note, I just want to tell you that this book kind of gives you the validation to sample a ton of career before you pick one, but this book doesn't give you like a blueprint to say, hey, do this, do that, and then get into this career. Rather, keep nurturing your passion, sample these passions for a very, very long time before you arrive on a final decision to say, okay, this is my calling. So sample a ton of things, and I wish a lot more joy and a fulfilling career to you and to everyone else who's watching this video. Until I see you in the next one, this is Praveen Ramesh signing off.